In this episode, I interview Yeshim Albai, who is the head of sixth form at Oasis Academy in Hadley. We speak about the importance of having high expectations for students and how teachers can implement this too. We also discuss why consistency is the key and essential component to high expectations across the academy. I hope you enjoy listening to this episode. Hello, welcome to the podcast. This is our third episode, and in today's podcast, I will be interviewing not just a colleague, but also a former pupil who used to attend Hadley, well, formerly known as Albany at the time. Yeshim Albai, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you.
How are you doing? You okay?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. I'm just wondering, you're sitting in front of me and I'm thinking, sixth form, year 12, year 13, both at separate journeys at the moment. How are things with you at the moment?
So September's always very exciting, very, very busy, but it gives us the opportunity to sort of establish those routines again, establish those expectations again, and really set those targets for the rest of the year. I think with any sort of subject or year group, there's different priorities. For us, for year 12, the biggest priority is transition, because it's that jump from year 11 to year 12. For year 13, it is exam ready. It is sort of those skills that we want them to develop, but also we want them to leave Hadley with all the tools that means that they can then excel beyond us. So I think it's quite intense, but it's also very exciting.
I mean, your role, I see the role that you do on a day in, day out basis, and it's quite intriguing to see how you manage to, keep yourself afloat. I do want to take this opportunity to say congratulations to you, because I know that we achieved some outstanding results at Key Stage 5. It's been recognised not just locally across the borough of Enfield, but also across Oasis Community Learning, some of the best results for sixth form. How do you feel about that?
I think it is absolutely incredible. We can't underplay how brilliant those results were, but I think that's a testament to Hadley and the sort of holistic approach that we provide students. You can't just do that in year 12 or year 13. That is something that happens way before they come to the sixth form. That happens in classrooms, that happens in corridors, that happens with every teacher. So I think it really is something that we celebrate all together, and super exciting, because it is now a brand new year 13 and we have to see them through that journey again.
Excellent. I want to ask you a little bit about expectations. So, I mean, you mentioned whatever the work that's been done before. So we're starting from early years, nursery, reception, primary, go through secondary to sixth form. All of those phases play an important part. But what I'm intrigued to find out from you is, what does it mean to have high expectations in our academy?
For me, and sort of the approach we take in sixth form, high expectations is really the compass of everything we do day in, day out. I think we have to put high expectations at the heart of every single thing that we do, be it sort of the late detentions, be it the sort of parent meetings, the conversations we have with students. It has to underpin all of those conversations. But for me, a lot of the time people talk about high expectations, and I don't doubt that all teachers have high expectations, but I think what makes it different and what makes it an impactful high expectation is when it's consistent. And I think the thing in the sixth form, and what I think and what we sort of approach in the sixth form, is no matter the weather, no matter the mood, no matter how we're feeling, how tired we are, high expectations do not drop. And that's what it's for me. It's not something we have and something we say, but we have to live day in, day out. Mm-hmm. And that has to be the mission. And that's shared with students, shared with staff. And that's what it is. It's an attitude.
So how do the high expectations benefit students academically and personally?
I think when we think about students, sometimes we think that, we have students who sometimes resist those high expectations. But ultimately, all students want control. They want their teachers, their leaders, their head of years to control their education. And high expectations is really about that. We're telling them that this is happening because of this. So we communicate to the students those high expectations, and that can be done in a variety of different methods. But something that, our principal told me early in my career was that just because you say something, just because I tell the students about my high expectations or about staff, we cannot assume that that's taken in. So I think one of the biggest parts in terms of how we approach it and how we make sure that students benefit from it is relentlessly telling them. Although they might think they've heard it enough, we still talk about it because that is our ethos. That is why we are here. And it benefits them because there is no one day that is more important than any other day. I told students in an assembly recently, when you think about your school journey, September isn't any more important than June. Although June is when they sit their exams, September needs to have the same level of importance. So it's making sure that students know that you will not budge. Mm-hmm. And that is exactly what you expect, and that will always be followed through.
So essentially what you're saying is that there are no excuses. You're basically ensuring that the message is over communicated so that it becomes part and parcel of the daily, how can you say, mantra. That's essentially what you're saying.
Yes, and a quote that I use for in assemblies is, you can have excuses or success, not both. Mm-hmm. So ultimately, they can give me reasons as to why those high expectations are not met, mm-hmm. but that won't change the outcome.
So you spoke about wonderfully there how you communicate this message of high expectations with students, and it's working. But surely, the teaching staff play a pivotal role in this as well. When we talk about high expectations, when we talk about results, and we talk about student outcomes, this is also linked with quality first teaching and teachers using the Hadley steps of excellence. But how do you communicate that message to staff and making sure that they are also part of this journey of understanding what you are setting out?
I think high expectations on their own will not be enough to create buy-in. You have to explain the rationale behind it, like we do with students. When I deliver and talk to staff, sixth form staff, and we talk about why it is that we do what we do, we talk about the sort of life-changing experiences that students have as a result of those high expectations. Also, we communicate it through a very sort of open and supportive system. There's so many layers to that. That's sort of learning walks, that's CPD, that's middle leaders meeting, that's personalised sort of training sessions. But really, ultimately, what we want to do is, if a member of staff needs support with a particular sixth form related student or a sixth form related sort of concern, then that is addressed in a very timely manner to show that not only are we expecting high expectations from the teachers and from the students, but we are also keeping ourselves to account to those expectations.
Mm-hmm. So, Yeshim, lots of information around high expectations for students and teachers. What do you do when you have children, or students rather, who struggle to meet these expectations? What kind of support do you have in place for them?
I think it's what you said earlier about over-communicating, because where students are maybe struggling or not sort of as easily on board with those high expectations, it's probably that they do not understand the impact of maybe not reaching that level is having on their sort of attainment, their progress, their outcomes. So it really is very, very sort of simply spelling it out for them. What will happen if certain expectations are met? If this is this level, then this is going to be matched in sort of the outcome. Mm-hmm. So it's really about having that communication with the students. And I think it's really important sometimes not to do it just in an assembly form. It's to do with a personalised approach with specific students, because there'll be different struggles or different challenges with different students. And you have to then provide a different approach for that student, so it's far more effective. Yeah. So it'll be on a case-by-case basis. And it might sometimes be that it's not me that talks to them and it's Miss Knipe, our sixth form coordinator. But it's really about having that balance and that sort of very personalised approach with each student.
That's interesting. Your background obviously is that of you're a psychology teacher. You've been here for 7 years. Mm-hmm. You also lead in psychology. Tell us a little bit about your teaching. How does your teaching of A-level psychology and GCSE impact the work that you do as a head of sixth form?
I think in general, the study of psychology is the study of human behaviour. So that helps you in terms of understanding students, those cues, those nonverbal behaviours, and to be able to then effectively deliver the messages we spoke about before, about the power of language. It's concepts like that. In addition, what then happens is the teaching that happens in the classrooms can then be communicated and filtered into assemblies in the form of mindset, in the form of memory strategies, in the form of motivation and resilience. And I think it becomes even more powerful because when it's delivered by me with the background of psychology, students can then take that on board a bit more maybe because they think she's a psychology specialist, so maybe I should do this type of revision because it will work.
Okay, so we're heading towards the end of our podcast, Yeshim. I have a final question for you. Mm-hmm. The question is, how would you communicate building or setting high expectations for staff and students at our academy?
I think there is only one word that is fundamental to high expectations, and they should be used together. It's like the perfect marriage. It's consistency. I think high expectations, to be high, to be effective, to be impactful, need to be consistent. And we see that day in, day out in Hadley. We see that sort of in our classrooms, in our corridors. But I think what we need to just over communicate and be very clear. If you're not clear about what it is that you expect, the attitude, because a lot of the time we say we all have high expectations, but tell me what that is. Is that coming to lesson? Is that matching your lesson time with independent study? You need to break it down. High expectation is such an abstract concept. You need to make it tangible. What does that mean? Okay, I have high expectations, miss, but what is it? That means I do this, I do this, I do that. It has to be very clear, very measurable, very specific. And so I think maybe thinking about to staff, it needs to be about breaking it down. What does it mean, sir? Whoever you are, whoever is listening to this right now, what does it mean to have high expectations in maths? What does it mean for you to have high expectations in this lesson with this year group? Break it down. Mm-hmm. If you can't say it in 3 sentences in terms of what you're expecting, then maybe it needs to be, you need to rethink about it.
Yeshim Albai, thank you so much for attending the podcast. I hope to welcome you back on the next one next time. Hopefully Ruth will interview in the next one.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That was a pleasure.
Take care.